Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And so we have lesson 2 where we're going to talk about the bass clef, which is going to be our left hand. So first I'm just going to quick review of what the keys mean and how we can interpret that. So remember we have our 2 black key group and our 3 black key group. And so we remember that when we have the 2 black key group, we have C, D, and E. And then when we have our 3 black key group, we have F, G, A, and B. So of course we have to remember that it starts with C and not A, like we usually have in the English alphabet. So of course we have our 5 lines again. So we start at the bottom and go up. And so now we know we're in bass clef because the bass clef is right on the left. So a great way to remember this, I know a couple, but I'm going to put the general great big dogs fight animals. That's the one that I learned when I was 8. And that's the one I've been using a lot throughout my music career. But then when I became a music teacher, I thought of different ways and looked up different ways to remember this. So you can say great big dogs fight animals. I've even seen good boys do fine always. Great big dreams for America. And then for this one, I always say, like, you can do whatever. Like, if your name starts with an A, like Amy or Adam or, whichever, like, personalize it to yourself, because I learned that when I was teaching piano, one of my students was having trouble with remembering the lines and spaces for bass clef. And so I was like, oh, well, your name starts with an A, so how about we do this? Great big dreams for, and then her name. So that really attached to her, personalizing it to her. So if one of these 3 are not like something that's helping you, feel free to come up with a new way. And then now we have our spaces. And of course we still have our 4 spaces. And again, we're in our bass clef. And to remember this, we can say all cows eat grass. And I saw another one of all cars eat gas. Oops. So whichever you like more, or whichever one helps you more, all cows eat grass or all cars eat gas. And they're kind of the same, but whichever one helps you more. So again, we start at the bottom up, A, C, E, and G. All cows eat grass. So now we have our ledger. So of course we know that our top line is going to be A, because great big dogs fight animals, great big dreams for America, whichever one helps you remember. But the top line in bass clef is going to be A. So we know that this one is going to be A. So now we're going to go a space up. So remember, we kind of have an imaginary line that I'm just going to kind of draw a little bit with a highlighter. So you can see like our imaginary line. And then we're going to have C. And this C is the same middle C as our treble clef. And I'll just draw a little picture. And this I'll dive into a little bit more in a few seconds. But this we know is middle C with the imaginary line. And then this is the same C. So this is middle C and middle C. So just remember that our top line is going to be A, and we're going to go space up with the imaginary line right there. And then C is going to have the first imaginary line. So in the future, when we have more ledgers, I'll just show a little bit of an example. We're going to have more of these imaginary lines and spaces. And we're eventually going to get to, like here's an example of A, of more ledger. So we have like the line for C, space for B, and then line for A. That's something we'll dive into a little bit later. So draw a bass clef. This is very simple. It was easier for me to draw a bass clef than a treble clef, because obviously a treble clef is a little more complex in its own way. But basically a bass clef, you're just gonna draw a big circle, make like half a heart, or like, opposite of a C, and then 2 dots. And the placement of the bass clef is important on the staff. Right now we're not going to worry about that. Just learn how to draw those bass clefs of the big dot, half heart, and dot and dot. Simple. And then all together. So we got 5 lines, 4 spaces, and then 2 ledgers, but technically I always add A in the ledger as well, just to get a sense of what our ledger is. So remember, we're going to have great big dogs fight animals, and we have all cows eat grass. And then ledger, we just got to remember that A, B, C. And this C is the same as the middle C in treble clef. So let's fill this in. Great big dogs fight animals, all cows eat grass, and then we have B, C. So look at this pattern again, that we have the same pattern that we did last time, where we go G, then A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So now that we're getting in that pattern of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, G. And while when we have lines and spaces, they're kind of broken up more and they skip some. And we're going to talk more about half steps and whole steps when we talk about scales. And now we have our grand staff. So this is when we combine our treble and bass cleft. So I'm just going to show a little bit of the grand staff, of how we have 2 measures together, and we always have the treble clef on top and bass clef on bottom, and sometimes there'll be a little bit of a change, but that's not something we'll talk about right now. And then so we have a measure with 5 lines, 4 spaces, and then here is the ledger, so we get more of an idea. There's the ledger, and then ledger, and ledger. So we're going to get notes all the way up here, in here, as well as down here. And that's how we're going to get all 88 keys. So this I'm going to show middle C for both treble and bass cleft. So that way you kind of get a sense of what it looks like. But like typically they won't be on the same imaginary line, I guess you could say. But just for drawing certain purposes, that's just what they look like. So for homework, I highly recommend practicing these note names and going through great big dogs fight animals, or whatever way helps you to remember those lines, as well as the spaces of all cows eat grass or all cars eat gas. And just remember those note names. Remember that you're starting from the first line to the 5th line. So we're starting bottom up with that great big dogs fight animals and all cows eat grass. So just hammer down those note names and try to assign and memorize these note names, so that in the future when we take further lessons, it'll be easy to come to you. And I also highly recommend drawing that bass cleft. And this one's pretty simple, and of course keep practicing all your treble clef stuff. Keep practicing the drawings, keep practicing that every good boy does fine, and face. Keep practicing, because once you have it, you need to keep practicing it, keep refining it, so that you don't lose this information. So I'll see you guys next time for our next video, and we'll be covering values and what these notes are going to mean.